You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast, hosted by the founder of Better Beings, Michelle Zellner. Michelle's experiences have equipped her with knowledge and perspective, and for nearly 3 decades, she has been informing, influencing, and inspiring thousands on their journeys. This show spotlights guests of diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise, but they all align with Michelle's purpose and passion to help you be a better human being. There is something for everyone on their way to a healthier, happier life. Enjoy the show.
Greetings. Thank you for tuning into the Be a Better Being podcast. This is episode 145, being released on September 29th. And we are at the tail end of Self-Care Awareness and Improvement Month. I hope you have been doing all the things that you want to do to be a better being. And if you haven't gotten started on that yet, I really think after today's conversation, you are going to be so inspired. I am incredibly excited to be getting to chat to this young man today. Colton Burt is a young entrepreneur from central Wisconsin, and I'll get into a little bit more about that as we discuss. He got his start in 2017 in the tiny town of Princeton at the age of 18 with just $3,000 and 400 square feet of personal training studio space. Over the past 8 years, he's grown his businesses to include 6 fitness center locations under the name Grizzly Fitness, an exercise equipment sales and repair company called Priority Fitness, and has his own podcast called The Grizzly Life. Now at age 27, Colton owns 4 pieces of real estate, employs a staff of over 20 full-time and part-time employees, and is continuously expanding his personal knowledge and the depth and breadth of his business, i.e., he is a better being, which is exactly why he's on this show. So Colton, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to have a conversation with you about this.
Yeah. So little backstory. I am from a tiny town in Wisconsin as well, Winneconne, technically Poygan, which is unincorporated in between Winneconne and Omro. Went to Winneconne schools, had an Omro address, a Winneconne phone number. So, you know, the whole remote town thing. And Wautoma, which is where I know you from, is where my parents currently live. After many years of moving around and back and forth, have finally decided to finish out the remainder of their lovely life in Wautoma. And it used to be a town that Winneconne schools were in the same district. I, however, had never, ever been to Wautoma until I believe it was June of 2023. Most of my high school friends, my friends were in high school sports. I was a private club competitive gymnast, so didn't do any kind of high school sports. So there was never a need for me to go to Wautoma, so never did. Fast forward 2023, my parents have landed there. And one of the requirements for me personally to be able to spend a extended period of time somewhere is to have access to a really great gym. And when I discovered this really great gym, less than a 2-minute drive and less than a 30-minute walk from my parents' house, I was like, okay, I endorse this move. I endorse this location for my parents. And that's really how I stumbled upon Grizzly Fitness, and then eventually stumbled upon you and what you're doing. And I believe I probably saw, I don't know, either on social media or maybe a post at the gym about the podcast that you launched. And I started listening and was just blown away by all of it. And even by some of the things that we are very, very, very similar in, even though you're a 27-year-old guy and I'm a almost 53-year-old woman. So there we go. I know that was a really incredibly long rambling on there, but I want people to understand the backstory and why you specifically are the person I've asked to come on this show. So all that being said, let's do just a little bit of backstory of you. I know we kind of gave the thumbnail sketch there, but maybe a little more information about you and how you even got into wanting to own businesses, the role of fitness, the role of wanting to be a business owner, and how on earth at the age of 27 are you already as successful as you are?
Sure. I'll do my best to keep it short and sweet because I could probably talk for an hour of just giving a background. So I'll keep it short and I guess just throw me questions where you've got them. But so really it all started when I was 18. I'll even go before kind of some of the introduction. I was going to college actually out in Colorado. So funny enough, you're from here originally. And then I was actually out in Colorado, which you are, I believe now over in Denver, right? So I met this guy named Thomas. He wasn't my roommate, but we were on the same floor. And long story short there, we ended up getting together and we're just like, dude, we want to start something. We want to, I don't know, I'm really into fitness. I got him into fitness. That's kind of like the effect that I have on people is if you're around me, we're probably going to be workout partners and we're going to do that. So we created what was called Priority Athlete, which was the original company. Although it wasn't like an LLC, it wasn't anything super real. It was basically a website that had a bunch of videos of me working out, doing the exercise, and I would give individuals like a monthly workout plan. I think they'd pay me like $20 or $30 a month. Like, I don't know, maybe not even that. Maybe I was just doing it for free to get people going. And then I sold some apparel as well. So that was like the very start of like wanting to do something. I then moved home and I was working out at several gyms around here. What really kind of, I don't want to say set me off, but what made me pursue my first studio is I was actually training at a YMCA and I was recording myself. So my followers, this is pre-influencer because like influencers, is kind of the last 5-6 years. But so when I was 18, I was working out at the Y and I actually got like asked to leave if I was going to be recording myself. And mind you, I didn't have like a big stand. It was just my phone. And I was like putting it on my Snapchat, like 5-second videos of me doing a chest press or something to show my followers, do 4 sets of 10 of this or whatever. And so at the time, my mom had a studio in Princeton. I called her up. She didn't have a studio. Sorry. She had some space she was renting for her business. I called her. I'm like, hey, you're not using that front space. I would love to use it and start a little studio. And just so I had a place to record for myself and create like cool videos. What really motivated me when I was younger was like, again, this is pre like these reels and shorts and these other forms of content. So YouTube videos were cool and you could do like 5, 10, 20-minute video, like voiceover workout video where it was motivational. So that was kind of like something I really liked at that point. So that was kind of the dream, the vision, create content, whatever. So called my mom, said, hey, I want this little spot that you've got that you're not using. Is it cool? And she's like, yeah, no problem. So like within like 2 weeks of that, I had like some rubber flooring, some dumbbells, and like my parents' home gym squat rack thing that was like definitely not commercial grade, but I was like, I've got a gym. This is great. I went on Craigslist because Marketplace wasn't a thing. And I was looking for anything. And I found some used rubber flooring from a gym up in Chippewa Falls. And like I said, some dumbbells down in Lake Geneva. And I was like, now I've got a gym. What really allowed me to start doing all this, so that was like the very beginning. That's how I got into this. What happened was I needed to get new equipment for my facilities or things that I wanted. I was a very functional fitness. I was more of an athlete. I was an athlete throughout school, so I was big into functional fitness, free weights. I didn't need machines. Well, eventually I decided I needed a better squat rack than my parents' like home gym all in one unit. So what I did was I put that on Craigslist. I asked my parents if it was okay. They're like, yeah, it's fine. And I asked them, I'm like, what'd you pay for this? Like back when I was in middle school. And they're like, oh, I think we paid like $500 or something. Came with the weights, the bar, everything. So I sold just the squat rack alone for like $600, like this home gym unit. I kept the weights, kept the bar, and then I had $600 cash. I went and bought like 2 commercial squat racks for like cheaper from like a school that was, it's like, so like this just kept happening. And so I was like, wow, that was kind of nice. Like I bought some, I guess I didn't buy it, but I had flipped it and acquired gym equipment. Again, I'll fast forward. So then I started wanting to get gym equipment in my little studio space. I wanted a leg extension, something to just do that, or like a little cable cross. And so I kept doing the same thing. I'd buy 3 machines from some dude's garage and I'd keep the one I wanted and I'd sell the 2. And now all of a sudden I'd be left cash positive and I'd have gym equipment in my facility. So I kept doing this for like 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. And before you know it, I come downstairs with my parents and I like pull this cash out from under my bed and I'm like, whoa, like, they thought I was, dealing drugs or something, like they're like, how are you getting all this money? And I was like, I've just been like buying and selling equipment like every day, basically. Like I didn't really have a job. Like that's what I was doing. So yeah, that was kind of the start of it. And that's what got me going into these other ventures. I also was going to college at the time. So I came home after 1 semester at UCCS. I went to tech school for 2 semesters, which my parents were like arguing about, like I should go to 4-year, now. And then they're like, you should go to, my mom was like, you can go to a tech school. So I ended up getting ACE certified right away as a personal trainer as well, because that was kind of my passion, was training. And that is really like the beginning portion of all of that. So I don't know where you want me to go from there, but that's really what got us going.
I mean, the genesis of anybody's, future career is always fascinating to me. Were your parents entrepreneurs, or where did this drive, this entrepreneurial drive come from?
So my dad, is a he's a business owner as well now. He started working for a company 25, 30 years ago, and he was like the first guy. So kind of like the entrepreneur, right? And that was like, those weren't really terms back at that point. He was just a hardworking 25-year-old guy who took a chance with this, not going to get into that story, but he worked his way up. I mean, he started there, but he worked for a long time with them. One of the business partners split off, and he got an opportunity to like be one of the business owners as well. So like, I don't necessarily compare myself to him in that sense, because he was more of, like I said, the entrepreneur than he was the entrepreneur, I guess, in the beginning there. And then my mom has always done things. She likes to dabble in a little bit of everything. Ever since I was a kid growing up, I can remember like being in all these different stores. She does like bath and body products. She did like soaps and candles and bath bombs and like all of these different things, and just kind of continued evolving. Now she does like massage. She went to nails. Like she just got all of these, like she loves all of these new things, and whatever kind of grabs her attention is kind of what she goes for. And then when she's like tired of it or wants to add another skill, she does that. So as far as my own entrepreneurial, like why, I assume they naturally have some effect on me because they've done their own thing. But we've never been like a family where we're just like sitting down talking about like business or like going out and doing your own thing. Like I said, my dad was very, you need to go to a 4-year, you need a degree, otherwise like you're not going to make it in this world, right? Like degrees are important. Now that's shifted a lot in the last 5, 6, 7 years, but that was like, you have to go to 4-year. And so again, I don't think naturally like that was the spirit. I think I really enjoyed being a leader. I really enjoyed when I was in school, I would be the guy that would pick up 3, 4, 5 kids before school. We'd go work out at 5:30 a.m. And I actually like created like a binder of workouts so like they could follow along. And so like naturally I was doing these things and these tendencies, and like kind of the older I get, I look back and a lot of these reflections are like, okay, this totally makes sense that I'm doing what I'm doing now, if that makes sense. So again, I've not grown up around business owners or like influences like that. I mean, my parents are, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, one of the common threads with so many people I know and so many people I've had on the podcast, especially who end up in a role similar to you and I, is that foundation of sports growing up, right? And all of the things that it teaches you. A couple of years ago, I had some of my former gymnastics teammates. We did an episode and we just talked about like lessons from the mat, right? What did we learn that are now life lessons that at the moment you're learning them, you have no idea that this is going to matter when you're 40. So maybe, some of that structure and discipline and that go-getter spirit came from sports. Let's talk a little bit about that. And also I want to bring the small town element into it because I grew up in a small town. I've always thought I was like a big city girl who just happened to live in a small town because I had like bigger ideas, right? And I love small town, very grateful for my small town upbringing. And even now as I'm kind of at a second phase of life, I can probably appreciate and maybe even see myself coming back to a small town sort of setting, but expanding to like the big city and seeing what other opportunities are out there was so critical. There's no way I would be doing what I'd be doing had I not gone on and exposed myself to those things. So talk a little bit about the athlete piece and how that maybe inspired the discipline and the drive and that kind of mindset in you.
Sure. So definitely the athletic aspect of things. Like I was always brought up, my dad was a very high level wrestler in school, didn't win state, but he was he was like top in the state every year. So he had that like self-drive and determination. So he kind of instilled that in me and all of us as kids, where like, you don't just play to play, like you play to compete and you want to be the best you can be. And so I spent basically like all of my childhood, football, baseball, wrestling. I dabbled in some other sports when I was younger, but it was just always constantly like, as soon as dad would get home, it's like, hey, let's go outside and play. Let's practice. Let's get better. So I think that aspect, he spent so much time with me on the wrestling mat because he wanted to see me be the best wrestler because he never won state, right? So he was like instilling all these things. He wished he had done baseball and football again. Like we would just every day we'd be playing catch. So that was like my entire upbringing. I did not wrestle in high school. I played football and baseball. But I was the guy, like I started a powerlifting program in high school because we didn't have one in Watoma. I got like 5, 10 kids involved in that. My dad volunteered to be the guy that would like be our coach to like go to meets. So it could be like a like a sanctioned sport or whatever it's called through high school and stuff. So I think that's definitely a big impact on my leadership skills, but also like my drive, my determination, the reason I want to go out and succeed, because I feel like the mentality of you don't need to compare yourself to others, right? But like you do want to be the best. You want to go out and compete. And like that's definitely an athletic sports competitiveness. So I always have that drive. I don't look around and compare myself, but I also know at the end of the day, like I want to know I gave it my all and I was able to, succeed at a high level, right? So yeah.
Well, and I think you also just highlighted how critical role modeling, support, right? Having the parent or the coach or whoever it is, somebody in your life that presents these ideas to you, that maybe sets a standard or an expectation, and then is actually there alongside, cheering you, challenging you, supporting you, guiding you, pushing you. And I think for so many people, that is a giant chunk that's lacking, which is why people are maybe lost or don't know what to do or don't feel like they can measure up or don't have that drive to be better, because maybe they don't think they can be better. So why bother? So just such a critical role that you were very lucky to have. I was very lucky to have. So many people don't have it naturally. However, I think there are so many opportunities for people to find it and, to understand that this is a crucial need. And if it doesn't naturally exist in my life, maybe there is a way that I can figure out how to fill that gap. And if anybody listening is that person who knows they could fill a gap for somebody, I mean, think about what an amazing way to spend your life that could be, right? To really help mold and shape somebody that might otherwise not get exposed to things.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I talk a lot about like your inner circle. And one of my things I like to say a lot is understand who's around you and like what influence they have on you, right? And obviously, again, like you and I, like we had a very good upbringing and had parents who pushed us, but like I want like my podcast, I'm not here to push that, but my goal is to be like that inner circle friend that helps bring you to the next level, right? A lot of social groups lack that person, and usually those little circles have that person who wants to, go out and party or go out and like not be a better version of themselves. And my whole motto is like, be 1% better, just be a little bit better today and be the best you can be. So yeah, just being leery or cautious of who's that inner circle and are you putting yourself in the best possible chance to win. And it is definitely, you have to be willing to accept I'm ready to change, or I want to change, right? Like nobody's going to change until they want to change, but I want to at least be that option for people to hear and potentially move to that next level. So.
And it's a very selfless position to put yourself in, because you don't have to do that. Nobody has to do that, right? And I circle this back to the small town. So in previous part of my life, I went through a yucky breakup and didn't know what I was doing because my whole world had just crashed and my plan is not going as planned. So what do? Well, you go home. So go home to live with mom and dad at the age of 25 when I thought I had like everything figured out. And now here I am living back in parents' house in Poygan. I was already a very successful personal trainer. This is before you were even born, Colton, if you can believe that. Before personal training was a thing. And I was really successful, except that here I am now, like moving back home to Wisconsin. So what am I going to do? Well, there was a club. I believe it was the Neenah Athletic and Tennis Club. It might even still exist. I'm not sure.
I think it's a YMCA now. I think if it is that facility.
Yeah. So a 45-minute drive from where my parents lived to Neenah, but it was really the only thing out there that had any kind of personal training going on at all in a gym. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go see if I can go be a personal trainer at this club where I had been making close to $60 an hour. I was now going to make $18 an hour because that is what personal trainers in Wisconsin, in Neenah at that time were earning. And I was like, okay. But even more than that, like there's just no real desire or culture for it. Now, this is, again, 20 plus years ago. But even just as a college kid coming home to visit mom and dad, there's no gym. I know my gym is my sanctuary, and it always has been for a very long time. And there's nothing close. And I would recognize that I can't really stay and visit for too long because I don't have anywhere to go work out. I don't have anywhere to go. And if I go, it's at least a 30-minute drive, and then it's a 30-minute drive home. And then we take all this time away from my family, and I can't do that because I'm here to visit. And it was something that it was always frustrating for a small town person, right? So imagine my delight when here I am in this other small town. And yes, Anytime Fitnesses and some of these other things had popped up here and there. It was not the kind of workout I wanted. Those are great workouts for a lot of people, not the kind of workout I want, not the kind of gym I want to go to. So number one, love the name Grizzly Fitness, like badass. Yes, we're there to be, right? But I walk in and I am just like tickled. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to change everything. So talk about your desire and your passion, because obviously you have them now all over. I think you just opened one in Omro, which if I was still living in my parents' house, they don't live there anymore, but that would probably be the gym I would go to. So talk about your desire to bring this access to people who live in small towns.
Sure. So growing up, I'm Neshgoro, town of 454 people. I think it's been for the last, since I've lived there. There's obviously nothing in a town like that small. And so going to school here in Watoma and Neshgoro Elementary, Westfield, all these small towns here, when I was an athlete in high school, my dad had to drive me an hour and a half to get the training that I needed to become a better, athlete, right? So my drive, my passion, my vision was like, there's all these small towns you drive right through that these kids don't have the opportunity to become, better athletes or better versions of themselves. And so like my original dream or my original thought process was like these kids that don't have a facility to really train at. A lot of these small towns, they don't get the government money that the bigger towns do or the bigger schools do. So a lot of their facilities are like, a couple hundred square feet, and like they don't really have open gym hours, and they just have gym class, but like, whether they're lifting or not. So my passion for training athletes and kids, and that's kind of what got me going. So driving through these small towns, and there's all of these small towns, these little pockets of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people that the franchises can't physically come there because all the franchise fees, it just doesn't make sense for them. And again, just there's nothing to do in a small town. I mean, there's bars and there's churches, right? Like either, so like you've got nothing really to do. You're lucky if there's a grocery store in a lot of these small towns. So I just kind of went out on a whim, and I had a space in Princeton, so that's why it happened. But after I started doing that, I was actually at another gym in Green Lake, and I'm like, well, this gym's not doing too bad either. Like, it's not like, again, it's not going to make you rich. You're not going to open a gym and do $1 million a month by any means, but that wasn't really my goal. My goal wasn't really the money. The goal was to make a little bit of money, but to give back to these small communities that don't have the opportunities that these big communities do have. So I don't think a lot of people think like that. I think a lot of people, I have to go to Oshkosh. I have to go to Appleton if I want to open a business and be successful, where, hey, I don't have any competition. The real estate's cheap. I own my real estate. I'm going to stay in these small towns and help these people live healthier, happier, longer lives. Right. So that's kind of what we're doing.
Well, and the community aspect of it, I know, as I'm every time I go back to visit my parents, a couple of days before, I say, hey, I'm coming, please activate my fob, charge my card for the day drop. And having been there now somewhat regularly, I see the same faces. I think some of them are like, who is this girl? Why is she only here for like a week every 6
Right.
months? Like, what? How is she getting in shape by only working out 1 week every 6 months? But very friendly, very community, obviously the support. And that's the thing with a small town, right? Like, people know people. You see them at the grocery store, you see them at church, you see them at the high school football game. And that strength of community and familiarity is also so critical for people's physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And to get to have that in a place where we're helping you improve your physical self is also happening at the same time, because we can get that feeling sitting in a bar, right? We can get that feeling going to the park and going fishing. But it's different when you incorporate physical movement and challenge and pushing yourself physically, doing something that's kind of awful, like, oh, that workout was really hard, but super awesome at the same time because you're all doing it together. It adds this very different level of connection and support and all of those things that we really do need in order to thrive. So as you have opened these gyms, I believe 6 now, is that correct?
6, yeah. I've got 5 of my own, and then I'm partners with another location, yes.
Yeah. So as you have seen that in the progression of opening these gyms, obviously you're not a community member of all of them, but as a business owner and somebody who's establishing community ties, how have you seen like the impact in the community specifically?
So one thing I do, want to add, one of our goals there too is like we have multiple facilities, and it's very tough as you try to systematize these businesses and to continue growing, right, and expanding this idea of these small communities. One of our really big goals on this community drive, like this community aspect, is to stay feeling like a mom and pop gym. And that's like one of the biggest drivers for us, because like you said, as you come in, it feels like home, it feels like a community. You get to see and meet these people. So we are really passionate about trying to not have the same color schemes, not have the same equipment in all of our facilities. Like, you could go to Watoma every time you're here, and I would highly recommend you go check out my Berlin facility when you come, because that one's kind of like that one's like just amazing too. But that's what we really drive for, is keeping it feeling like a mom and pop gym. It's not going to be the same. You talk about some of these franchises you already mentioned. You walk in and it's like, oh, the same purple wall is right there, and the bubblers, and which I get. Like, you're comfortable and you know where stuff is at. Kind of like Quick Trip over here. All the Quick Trips are the same, but our goal is not to go down that path of the franchise feel. We want to stay mom and pop, which is difficult the larger you go. So sorry, I had to add that there, but
I actually think that's a really great point, because it brings the personal touch back to it, right? This whole idea of personal training, the thing you got into in the beginning, and now making the personal touches for that community. So we're not just sticking this cookie cutter thing into this small town, but we are curating this environment, this atmosphere in a way that matches the community vibe and matches maybe, what the community would really benefit from and would really feel like, oh yeah, this is part of our home and this is where I belong and feel very safe and comfortable to come do things that might be really vulnerable for somebody, right? For a lot of people, the gym is a very scary place. A very scary place. One of the reasons they don't ever step foot in it, especially into like the big box ones, because they think everyone's just staring at them and judging them. And I don't want to do that to myself, so I'm not going to go. And yet here we are, we create this atmosphere where literally everybody is just there to better themselves and to be a support to other people who are bettering themselves.
Exactly. I think that's going to be one of the most like crucial parts to like our business. As like I said, it's not easy. As you grow and expand, you want things to be the same as far as systems go and communications go with your staff, but you nailed it right in the head. Like, just feeling comfortable, that feeling of a locally owned business is like such a big driver. I think that just allows people to come in and feel like, again, home. And it's difficult because I can't, like you said, I can't go into all of these communities and like be like the owner and the face, which a lot of people love that too. You love coming in to be like, hey, Michelle, it's so good seeing you again. Like, you just know that you're going to run into you. So I'm really trying to establish like a face at each facility that people just know are going to be there. And we run our business like a family too. So every one of our staff, we treat like family. And that's a huge thing for like our brand and so.
I love it. I love all of it. I'm going to encourage listeners, absolutely pitch your podcast. I want everyone to go listen to the Grizzly Life podcast, because they can learn so much about the business side for sure and your personal side. But I do want to shift gears, talking about your own personal growth and development, your own approach to wellness. And I'll say right up front, one of the first things, I can't remember in what episode, but you kind of talked about your own routine of the day. And when you said, I'm usually in bed by 8:39, I'm done eating around 4:30 or 5, and I am up at 5 a.m. I'm like, oh my God, he's like the 27-year-old male version of me. I love this kid. This is fantastic. And yet I can only imagine 27-year-old guy in a small town. You're that weirdo going to bed at 9 a.m. and getting up or 9 p.m. and getting up at 5 a.m. You're not the cool kid out at the bar partying, doing all the things, right? Oh, you're so boring. Trust me. I heard all these things about me too. And yet here you are. So talk a little bit about your own wellness journey, your philosophy on health and well-being, nutrition, sleep, mindset, fitness. Let's wrap up our conversation with a little more personal stuff.
Sure. So obviously I've always been into fitness. It's always been one of my big things. I actually did what was called a precision genetic test, right? Through kind of like what Gary Brecka and Grant Cardone always talk about. So I did one of those. I can't remember which one I did first. I ended up doing two, and they're both through 10X. And that was around the same time where I'll back up. I've always been into health and fitness. I love eating healthy. And my problem and my struggle was that I was never really counting calories because I was always an athlete, right? You're working out hard. And we all know that metabolism from up until you're 18 to as soon as you graduate high school, it's completely different, right? Stuff doesn't, you're not losing body fat, you're gaining body fat and you're what am I doing differently? But you're not running around for 2 or 3 hours of football practice or, doing gymnastics and that kind of stuff. So I basically, especially in the beginning of my business, I was gaining weight. I was sitting in my desk more because I was working on my business. My workouts were inconsistent. And so that was kind of and then in 2020, there was nothing to do. So we all just hung out and did what I guess 22-year-olds would do as far as, I felt like probably drinking too much beer and just having a good time 3 or 4 days a week, right? Because what do you do? Our business, our gym was closed down. We didn't have that many locations. We couldn't do anything. So anyways, I've struggled with that fat gain since when I was a kid. As of recent, not this past July, but the July before, I started, and probably just before that, all of this carnivore stuff was going on, right? And this is what's really shifted me to instill all these other habits. So that's kind of where I'm going to start. Is my problem before I went on the carnivore diet was I would eat healthy, but healthy when you're a bodybuilder or working out, you eat too much pasta, you eat too much rice, and you're not really counting that stuff. You're just well, it's going to make me big and strong, and you're not really thinking about the diet you're not looking at the very every calorie. I don't know. I would just be eating too much, probably of the wrong things. So I researched carnivore. I was oh, that sounds fun. I should try that sometime because steak is my favorite thing, and I eat eggs every day. Those are what I love to love to eat. So July of 2023, I said, you know what? I'm just going to try it for 30 days and just do a reset. I've got really bad lower back problems, which we don't need to talk about, but I was maybe less inflammation, less body fat in my body. Maybe my lower back will just feel better. So at the time I was 195, started doing carnivore. The first week I was not really doing it, but kind of doing it. And then I just fell in love with it. It wasn't very hard. My problem was I'm on the road a lot. So eating meat and eggs on the road, how do you do it? You think it's impossible to travel and be healthy. And that's what everybody's misconception is gas station food. And now Quick Trip is the new fast food chain here. But, again, McDonald's, whatever. Everybody thinks it's extremely hard to eat healthy on the road. And nobody wants to do the hard things, which would be meal prep or think ahead and be a better version of yourself. And so anyways, I went carnivore. And I basically went all out for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. And I dropped 25, 30 pounds in the matter of 3 months. It just fell off. I felt better. I was sleeping better. And from that point on is when I started instilling all these other habits that you're talking about, which is a consistent workout schedule, going to bed at 8:30 every night, waking up at 5:15, 5:20, shooting for 12 to 14,000 steps a day, because 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, when I was sitting at my desk starting this business, I was averaging 5,000 steps a day, which is probably why I was gaining weight, because I wasn't running around like I used to. So anyways, carnivore has kind of changed my life in a positive way. I don't tell everybody to do it, although I do believe in kind of the ancestor diet and just kind of how we were, how we come up. So I don't eat any vegetables. I don't eat any fruit. Not saying that's for everybody, but that's just what I do. I don't eat dairy. I eat red meat. I eat eggs. Sometimes I'll eat fish. Sometimes I'll eat chicken. But that diet alone and how strict it is what made me better off. Because again, when I could eat pasta and maybe have 2 bowls instead of 1 or whatever, that just wasn't working for me. And then you just your diet is so not fixed. It's just kind of it just kind of keeps expanding, where the carnivore, what you can do and what you can't do. So that's why it worked well for me. Then that instilled all my other habits, working out, waking up, just all of these other things. And then I started really going down the rabbit hole, microplastics and sauna and, cold plunges and the benefits of that. And so it just opened up this whole new world of fitness and health for me. And now that's what I'm doing. So I don't know where you want me to go from there, but
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think one of the things that really drew me to your message as I listened to your podcast is your thirst for curiosity, right? You're curious. So I did a genetic health profile as well, because same, I love to be a guinea pig on myself. Most people who listen to me know that I will never pitch or promote something that I personally have not tried myself.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, it worked for me. I don't know that it's going to work for you, or, I didn't really feel benefit, but it might be perfect for you. And that is the thing, is there is not a one size fits all for everybody, but it is up to each of us to decide that we're going to experiment, decide that if we're going to do it, let's go all out and do it, not kind of half-ass it and then say, oh, it didn't work. Well, it didn't work because you didn't actually do it, right? Or
Right.
maybe it doesn't work for you. That could be true. But we have all these great tools at our disposal these days that never existed before, to be able to get a genetic health profile and see, oh, this diet actually would be better for me versus not good for someone else. Or, yeah, these foods are really important for me, but maybe not as important for someone else. And I think, investing in that information. And yes, it's an investment. It costs money, but it can help really save time, money, and effort on the other side, because now you have a very clear picture of what to do. So I love that at such a young age, you are willing and curious and interested in doing that information and figuring those things out and then experimenting and making shifts. And I'm here to tell you, your gut is pretty important. So at some point, I think maybe fruits and vegetables might be a good idea, or at least be supplementing properly. But that, for be something future as well, as you age and your body changes and all the things. But it's to stay in that growth mindset, right? To stay open all the time. As you change, as lifestyles change, as your body changes. And I think to your point earlier where, oh gosh, I could eat whatever I wanted. Why doesn't that work anymore? Well, because you're not the same person that you were.
Yep.
And that is something that as people age, they have a really hard time understanding, a really hard time wrapping their heads around, that nothing changes ever. You are constantly changing every single day. And sometimes it won't show up for a while, right? It doesn't show up the next day. It might show up in 5 years. Or in 10 years. One of the things I love about your podcast as well, and just your philosophy and approach, is that you have already figured it out, that what I'm doing today is going to impact me when I'm 40, when I'm 50. And that you're working and talking to specifically, you're talking to everybody, but I think you're such a powerful voice for young men, because as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, let me tell you, it's the men who are so resistant to this message and who just think oh, that won't happen to me, or, oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, I'll worry about it later. And then later comes and they're like, oh my gosh, what happened? Well, what happened was the last 40 years is what happened. So yeah, I think just having you understand that already at such a young age and being that guide and that light versus having a 50-year-old woman tell a 28-year-old guy hey, you might want to cut down on the soda, and, oh no, I look at me, I'm amazing. I don't need to cut down on soda. It lands differently than when it comes from you. So how has this been received by your audience now that you have a bigger voice out there with the podcast, and obviously having businesses in 6 communities? I imagine people are starting to listen and decide to be curious, or decide to be this kid, he doesn't know anything. What has it been like? How has that been received?
So that's definitely one of the tough things, is the age aspect. This kid, kind of like you just said, is when I'm giving my messages, I like to kind of, like you said earlier too, I like to tell people, do your own research, right? I'm sure if you listen to my podcast, you probably heard me say that several times. I say that for 2 reasons. One, you should figure out what works for you and do your own research. And 2, I don't always feel like I have the wisdom to tell, being a younger individual, I don't feel that I've lived enough life that I can come off as a strong voice, or he knows what he's talking about, right? So that's always a challenge for me when I'm trying to be a voice and trying to educate people. But it has definitely, what's really cool to me is the reason we started the podcast was to originally educate our gym members. And now it's kind of evolved, and it's more I want to help those people who need help. And my goal is not to find the fitness freaks or the people who already have it figured out. they could still get some value from my stuff because I talk like life lessons and business wins and things that I take from my business and use in my personal life, right? But my goal is to help those people who need it most. So people add me on my Snapchat because that's how a lot of people my age like to communicate. And I post a lot of stuff in my Snapchat. And I started doing that the same day I started my podcast, was like my brand of things. And what's awesome is people are listening. I have gym members of all ages. I've got a lady, I don't want to guess or assume her age, but she is an older lady, right? And she will stop me and tell me how awesome the podcast is. And she'll be like, I'm listening to it. And I'm learning a lot about nutrition or fitness or, business for all that matters. And just that one person is really like so powerful. And just like, I don't need to be an influencer. I don't need to have 1 million followers. Would I like to do that and have a big voice? Sure. But I've had several individuals on several different occasions come up and say, hey, just that one little thing you said has like changed my outlook on life, right? And it's like that message, like that feeling, and I'm sure you've had it too, changing people's lives for the last how many years. That's really what keeps us going, right? It's just that one person you get to touch and just make feel, just understand like life. And the biggest thing for me, I like to coach on is like, you need a why, you need a reason. And when we're in high school, our why is sports. Our why is because we're part of a team and we have to be the best we can be. You graduate and you lose sense of your why. You lose sense of like, well, why should I work out? Why should I care? You do drink more soda. You do stay out later. Like, you don't care about your sleep. But I think the strongest message is, what do you want to be like when you're 70? What do you want to be like when you're 80? Like, do you want your kids to have to take care of you? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to be able to play with your kids' kids, like your grandkids, right? Like, do you want to be able to walk up and down the stairs, or do you want to be a liability for your family? And I think once you start thinking about those, that's where the power and the message really comes. I don't want anybody to have to take care of me. I want to, and there's unforeseen things like the worst of the worst, the dementias and these other things that are out of control at some points, which I think a lot of that stuff is related to diet and how you treat yourself right now. But thinking of that why, do you want to be able to get out of your car easily when you're 65, 70? Do you want to be able to go swimming and play with your, whatever, right? Like, once you define that and realize life's about, the long term and not the short term, it's eye-opening, and it really changes your perspective. And I think that's what's helped me change my routines and my habits. So yeah, that's what's going on.
And I know everybody listening is like, oh my gosh, Michelle says that all the time.
And hey, for everybody listening, I haven't gone back and listened to all of Michelle's podcasts. This is a true.
No, exactly. That's the point. It's that the same message is coming from a very different person, and it's so important because it's basically 35 and under. I call the YBI, young, beautiful, and invincible. Look at me. I'm amazing. I don't need to change anything. I'm amazing. I will always be amazing, because they cannot project to being 50, like, oh my God, 50 is so old, right? Or, oh, that won't happen to me. Now, I know it's happened to everybody else in my family, but that won't happen to me. And it's this disconnect, right? It's this inability to really connect dots and understand how things work. And so obviously we have way more access to information than we ever had before. I think we even have better, more accurate information about how a human body works than we ever had before. It's just now about people deciding to want to do the work. And to your point, right? I say it all the time. Nobody wants to do the work. I would prefer to not do the work, if I'm honest. I mean, wave the wand and make me be amazing. Okay, sure. But that's not reality. It just isn't. And, it goes to one of my mottos, hard now or harder later. And it's always going to pan out that way. You either get to pick hard now, or you're going to deal with harder later. I don't know what harder later looks like, and I don't know how soon later is going to come, but I guarantee you it's going to be there for you. And it turns out the hard now isn't really that hard. It really isn't. We've just made it out to be hard, mainly because we haven't figured out how to set ourselves up for success, right? We haven't worked through all the obstacles and created those strategies. And maybe we haven't yet developed the skills and the tools to be able to do it. But that's also part of the process, right? This journey. I know a lot of people just want to get to the finish line. I just want the finish line. I don't want to do the process, except again, that isn't how anything in life works. So being that active participant in your life and being curious, learning, growing, having grace and gratitude and patience and doing the hard work, like, it requires all of those things. So before we officially wrap up here, Colton, anything that we have not yet touched on that you really think would be beneficial for the audience to hear?
I think the last thing I'll say, and kind of going off of what you were just talking about, and I'll keep it brief, but like, it is all of these things we're talking about, and like what your podcast is found on, what mine is found on, is things are hard. I mean, life is hard. There's all of these hard things, and the natural human behavior is, I mean, we don't want to do the hard things. It would be much better to sit on the couch and watch NFL Sunday, or whatever you're into, watch the movie, hang out. But doing those hard things really, I think, is so important. I mean, again, coming from the athletic background, you have to like work hard to appreciate the other things, right? I mean, so you really have to push yourself. I just think it builds a stronger character, a stronger individual. You talk about mental health, physical health. I mean, once you start focusing on yourself and you put yourself first, which is my main focus every morning. That's why I go to bed early. I wake up early, because once I put myself first, the rest of my life just works. Like the more focus I put on myself, and the better I become, the better everything else is. My business prospers when I'm prospering, right? Like when I'm focused on fitness, when I'm focused on my diet, my brain's more sharp, like everything is just flowing better. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. A lot of people get stuck in the day-to-day grind, and I don't have the energy, I don't have the motivation. It's like, try putting yourself first for a week, 2 weeks, and you'll notice a huge difference in your energy at work. Your conversations with your friends, your family, your spouse, your loved ones, right? Like everything just drastically improves when you truly put yourself first. And I think people need to realize that. And so I think your message, my message, is to try to like help open those eyes and understand. It's easy for us to say we love fitness, we love, these things, but those people who are just like on that edge or haven't really realized it yet, they just gotta, put your head down and try. I don't know if you've been tuning into the podcast. We've got Holden Smith. He's starting at 482 pounds. We've got him down. We're doing another episode this Saturday with him that releases next week. And we're doing a mini series with him. So one a month to hold him accountable. But that's, such an inspiring story, and somebody who's going to like change lives as well, because he's now taken a step in the right direction, which is what we want. So yeah, I'll leave it off there.
Yeah. No, I love it. I did listen and watch that one, and I'm definitely going to be following the journey, because that's what it's all about, right? Is people need that accountability, but also need to be inspired that, oh, wow, okay, he can do it. I can do it too. And that is literally what you and I are here to do. And it's why I knew you'd be such a great guest on this show, because we are in alignment in how things work, and none of us is about the quick fix. And I know that's like the instant thing everybody wants these days. And to some degree you can have it. It's probably not, you're not going to be like, I don't know. I generally don't value things as much when I was just given it versus the things I've worked for. Mm-hmm. And I take much better care of things that I worked hard and sacrificed for than I do, things that just kind of came easily. And that's just human nature. So yeah, we could talk for hours. We really could. You have so much value to offer. And I know your voice is going to be out there for many, many decades. And honestly, it gives me hope, really, because I haven't had a lot of hope in the generations coming up because of all the challenges, from the sedentary lifestyle to the crazy access to ultra processed foods. And I get it. I eat them too. And it's hard not to these, absurd schedules and the overload and the demands, and now social media and all the things. It's hard to see what the younger generations are dealing with, and how is that going to look long term. And so to know that there are people like you who are leaders and have figured it out at a very young age, and who are willing to step out there and educate and inform and inspire and influence and guide and support other people, I have hope. And so thank you for giving me some hope. And I know a lot of other people as well. So everybody, all of the info to contact or get in touch with Colton, all his social channels, his podcast, please listen to it. If you're ever in central Wisconsin, please go visit a Grizzly fitness center. I plan to see all of them eventually. I'm going to be home at Christmas time, so for an extended period. So I'll hit a couple of them for sure. I got to check out the Omro one, and Berlin is pretty close to Wautoma, so I'll probably check that one out too. But thank you again for coming on. This has been great. Really appreciate it. And listeners, now you get to go and be a better being.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. We hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.